This is NHK World Radio Japan in Tokyo. This broadcast in English will be on the air at 12 hours UTC or 21 hours Japan time on 9.625 and 9.695 megahertz. This transmission is being relayed to the eastern part of North America via Circle Canada on 6.120 megahertz. The broadcast is also being relayed to Europe via Dubai, the United Arab Emirates, on 9.790 megahertz. We're always pleased to receive your comments and suggestions. Our address is NHK World, Radio Japan, Tokyo, 150-8001 Japan. This is NHK World, Radio Japan in Tokyo.
The news from Tokyo. I'm Joseph Queenie.
And I'm Michelle Yamamoto.
Our news coverage this hour focuses entirely on the catastrophic earthquake in Japan. The program has been expanded to 29 minutes from the regular 10 minutes. The biggest earthquake that struck the Pacific coast in the country's northeast on Friday has brought catastrophic damage in broad areas. The meteorological agency says the magnitude 8.8 earthquake focused off the Tohoku region hit at 2:46 p.m. at an estimated depth of 24 kilometers. The quake is the largest Japan has suffered since records began about 140 years ago. Friday's massive earthquake has been followed by what are believed to be aftershocks with a magnitude of around 7, mainly on the Pacific coast of Japan's main island, Honshu. Tsunami waves have been hitting a wide-ranging area from Hokkaido in the north to the southernmost prefecture of Okinawa. The meteorological agency has issued a tsunami warning or advisory for most of the coastal areas of the country. A tsunami higher than 7.3 meters crashed into Fukushima Prefecture. Tsunamis higher than 4 meters were reported in other districts of eastern Japan. The agency says tsunami waves over 1 meter high were observed repeatedly on Saturday. Some tsunami data remains unknown due to equipment glitches. The agency says it is possible that tsunamis higher than 7 meters could have engulfed the coastal region. It's also urging people to stay on the guard against aftershocks.
Almost 600 people have been confirmed dead in Friday's earthquake that severely hit wide areas of northeastern Japan. An additional 400 to 500 bodies found in Miyagi Prefecture are likely to bring the death toll to more than 1,000. Of the 563 people confirmed dead in the Tohoku region as of 3 p.m. local time, 221 were in Iwate Prefecture, 190 in Fukushima, 149 in Miyagi, 2 in Aomori, and 1 in Yamagata respectively. In addition, local police were told that 200 to 300 bodies have been found along the coastal area in Sendai City, Miyagi Prefecture, but they are unable to enter the site to retrieve them. Another 100 bodies have been transported to a gymnasium in Iwanuma City, and a similar number recovered in Natori City, Miyagi Prefecture. More than 190 people remain missing in Iwate, Fukushima, Miyagi, and Aomori prefectures. In the Kanto region centering Tokyo, at least 28 people have been confirmed dead. In the Japanese capital, 2 people were killed after a building partially collapsed. Another 2 died from inhaling chemicals at a plant.
Japan's Fire and Disaster Management Agency says as of 4 p.m. Japan time on Saturday, a huge area of northeastern Japan, including Miyagi and Iwate prefectures, were hard hit by tsunami and fires in many locations. In Miyagi Prefecture, many evacuees are isolated in various locations in Sendai and Natori cities. At Sendai Airport, where many are stranded, the agency is deploying 100 personnel to rescue them by boats. Japan's self-defense forces are deploying 2 helicopters to rescue more than 20 Sendai residents and police officers who are thought to be isolated at Sendai Port. Many other people are also unaccounted for. In Ishinomaki City, the whole urban district is submerged due to the tsunami, hampering rescue work. In its Abuta district, 5 houses are on fire, while in Kadowaki district, fires are continuing in a wide area. In Tagajo City, areas near tanks containing thousands of kiloliters of oil are reportedly on fire. At Sendai City's Miyagino ward, a fire started at a refinery. It's feared that 6 tanks of liquefied petroleum gas may explode. Those who live in the vicinity of the refinery from a 2-kilometer radius have been ordered to evacuate the area. In Miyagino ward, the fire is forcing about 600 people to evacuate to the rooftop of an elementary school building. Separately, 300 people are said to be taking refuge at another elementary school. In Kesennuma City, fires are continuing in the Shishiori district and the Oshima district, both facing the Kesennuma Bay. An outdoor oil tank may have been damaged by the tsunami, making the oil catch fire. In Iwate Prefecture, Rikuzen Takada City is almost completely flattened by the tsunami following the massive earthquake. In the city, many people evacuating on the rooftops of the buildings are isolated. Among them, the JST.The have been rescuing about 100 people, taking refuge on the rooftop of the city office. In Hirono town, about 20 houses have been washed away, and many fishing boats have been capsized by the tsunami waves. In Aomori Prefecture, a vast area of Hachinohe City was submerged by the tsunami, leaving many people on the rooftops to wait for rescue. But the local conditions are too harsh for a rescue team to go near. In Fukushima Prefecture, the Soma district is suffering heavy damage because of the tsunami. Japan's Fire and Disaster Management Agency says fires have been reported in 206 locations in 12 prefectures following Friday's massive earthquake.
Tokyo Electric Power Company says an explosion was heard at one of its nuclear reactors in a power plant in a quake-hit Fukushima prefecture. At first, 7 workers were injured. The power plant operator told a news conference that it had been informed smoke was seen near the scene of the explosion at the Fukushima No. 1 power station. The utility firm had been releasing air from the container of the reactor to lower pressure. Pressure inside the container had been rising to a level 1,000 times higher than usual after the reactor's cooling system broke down due to power failure. Radioactive substances have been detected near the reactor.
The prefectural government of Fukushima has expanded the evacuation area around the Fukushima No. 1 power station from an earlier established 10-kilometer radius to a 20-kilometer radius. The decision was made at the instruction of the Prime Minister's office shortly before 6:30 p.m. local time at a nuclear disaster task force meeting on Saturday. The prefectural government is working to determine which towns and villages fall under the new evacuation order.
Earlier, the government's Nuclear and Industrial Safety Agency said that 2 radioactive substances, cesium and radioactive iodine, have been detected near the No. 1 reactor. The agency says this indicates that some of the metal containers of uranium fuel may have started melting. The substances are produced by fuel fission. University of Tokyo professor Naoto Sekimura says only a small part of the fuel may have melted and leaked outside. He called on residents near the power station to stay calm, saying that most of the fuel remains inside the reactor, which has stopped operation and is being cooled.
Fukushima Prefecture says a high level of radiation has been measured near the Fukushima No. 1 nuclear power station. The prefecture says the radiation level rose to 1,015 microsieverts per hour on Saturday. 1 hour of exposure to this amount of radiation is equivalent to the permissible amount of radiation an ordinary person receives in 1 year. It's about twice the level that requires power companies to notify the government of an emergency situation. The government's Nuclear and Industrial Safety Agency says the power station's operator, Tokyo Electric Power Company, observed the radiation level near a gate on the hillside of the nuclear power plant before an explosion was reported there.
The operation at Fukushima No. 1 plant to lower pressure of the containment vessel has been suspended due to high radiation levels at the site. The power station's operator, Tokyo Electric Power Company, began to vent air from the reactor container at 9 a.m. on Saturday. Under the plan, 2 valves close to the container would be opened manually, but radiation level on the second valve was found higher than expected. The operation has been suspended because of the possibility that the workers could be exposed to radiation. The Nuclear and Industrial Safety Agency said, at that time, even if radioactive substance is released in the air, safety of residents evacuated beyond a 10-kilometer radius from the No. 1 reactor will be ensured.
A nuclear emergency has also been declared at the Fukushima No. 2 nuclear power plant in order to prevent a widespread disaster. This follows Friday's emergency declaration for the Fukushima No. 1 nuclear power plant after the earthquake occurred. Chief Cabinet Secretary Yukio Edano told reporters on Saturday that Prime Minister Naoto Kan announced an atomic power emergency for the Fukushima No. 2 power plant operated by Tokyo Electric Power Company. Edano said the pressure control system is not functioning at the plant's 3 reactors. Edano added that a radiation leak has not been detected so far. He asked the local people to calmly follow the evacuation order.
Later, Chief Cabinet Secretary Yukio Edano says the evacuation area around the Fukushima No. 2 power station will be expanded from an earlier established 3-kilometer radius to a 10-kilometer radius. Edano said that what appears to be an explosion has been reported at Fukushima No. 1 station, although it is not yet clear whether it happened in the reactor. He said he is working to understand and analyze the situation with experts. Edano says radiation is being measured and that the data collected so far is within the expected levels.
The Health Ministry has sent an emergency medical team to the Fukushima No. 1 nuclear power plant in northeastern Japan in case people should be exposed to radiation. The group consists of doctors, nurses, and experts on radiation measurement. The team is getting ready at a nuclear disaster response center located about 5 kilometers from the power plant.
You're listening to NHK World, Radio Japan in Tokyo. More than 8,000 troops from Japan's self-defense forces have been sent to quake-hit areas with 190 aircraft and 25 ships aiming at carrying out search and rescue activities. The ground self-defense force has dispatched units from its Tohoku and Kanto armies. The Maritime Self-Defense Force has sent escort ships, supply ships, and other vessels to waters of quake-hit areas. On Friday evening, Prime Minister Naoto Kan ordered the SDF to be prepared to deal with a possible nuclear disaster. The government had declared an emergency at a nuclear power facility in Fukushima Prefecture. The Ground Self-Defense Forces Hazardous Material Unit will monitor Tokyo Electric Power Company's Fukushima No. 1 nuclear power plant.
The National Police Agency has also sent a rescue team of about 2,000 members to quake-hit areas of Miyagi, Iwate, and Fukushima prefectures in northeastern Japan. The members were called up from 27 prefectures, mainly in central and western Japan.
The Health Ministry says medical teams from hospitals and other facilities across Japan are treating the injured in quake-stricken areas in the eastern part of the country. As of 5 a.m. on Saturday, a total of 52 medical groups consisting of 3 to 5 doctors and nurses are working in Fukushima, Miyagi, Iwate, and Ibaraki prefectures. A further 150 such teams are currently heading for the regions. Moreover, another 131 medical teams are ready to be dispatched and are now reviewing the neediest areas.
The Japanese government held an emergency disaster task force meeting at the Prime Minister's office with all cabinet members in attendance on Saturday morning. Chief Cabinet Secretary Yukio Edano instructed them to do all they can for rescue operations. Edano said the earthquake was the strongest to hit Japan since the beginning of the Meiji era nearly 150 years ago. He said the utmost effort should be made for relief operations. The government will also hold a nuclear disaster task force meeting to discuss the Fukushima No. 1 nuclear power plant, where radiation has reportedly risen to a level 1,000 times higher than usual.
Prime Minister Naoto Kan has visited an emergency-stricken nuclear power plant in Fukushima Prefecture and inspected a quake-hit Pacific coast northeastern Japan. Kan left Tokyo on a self-defense force helicopter on Saturday morning for the Fukushima No. 1 nuclear plant. The head of the plant, which is operated by Tokyo Electric Power Company, briefed the Prime Minister on the current status of the plant and responses to the situation. Kan instructed the plant chief to place top priority on the safety of local residents and take proper and swift responses. Later by helicopter, Kan inspected the quake-battered coastal areas, including the cities of Sendai and Ishimaki in Miyagi Prefecture. He watched the blazing industrial complex and residential districts devastated by tsunami waves. On returning to his official residence in Tokyo, the Prime Minister told reporters that he felt the damage wrought by the tsunami very serious.
Later, Prime Minister Kan asked leaders of political parties to cooperate with the government in dealing with the aftermath of Friday's deadly earthquake and tsunami. Kan briefed leaders of the 8 governing and opposition parties after his inspection of the quake-hit areas from the air earlier in the day. He said coastal areas were submerged and fires were still burning in some areas. Kan said the government will have to draw up an emergency budget for reconstruction projects and that he wants cooperation from the opposition bloc.
A government area expert says the earthquake of magnitude 8.8 may have occurred in a wider-ranging focal area than was expected. The panel says geologists had not imagined several source areas would be synchronized. The Earthquake Research Committee, chaired by Tokyo University Professor Emeritus Katsuki Abe, held an extraordinary meeting on Friday night. At a news conference, Abe said an observation conducted at an observatory using GPS earthquake tracker shows that the ground there has moved about 4 meters to the west. The panel has concluded that all 4 expected focal regions were synchronized. The 4 regions make up a stretch of a few hundred kilometers from waters of Miyagi Prefecture to waters of Ibaraki Prefecture. Abe said that further evaluation of the quake would be needed after more data has been collected. He said only then would it be possible to determine whether an initial quake with a magnitude of 7.3 on Wednesday provided a warning of a bigger quake to come.
A South Korean rescue team has arrived at Tokyo's Haneda Airport. It's the first foreign assistance since the strongest ever earthquake hit Japan's northeast. A team of 4 South Koreans and 2 rescue dogs belonging to Korea's National Emergency Management Agency arrived at Haneda Airport on a civilian flight shortly before 3 p.m. on Saturday. State Secretary for Foreign Affairs Chiaki Takahashi received the team at the arrival lobby and shook hands with the members. Takahashi said he is grateful to President Im Myung-bak and asked members to take care as aftershocks are continuing in the affected areas. The leader of the rescue dog team said they are a small but experienced unit, having worked in Indonesia and Haiti after they were hit by major earthquakes. He said the team will do its best. More units may be dispatched from South Korea depending on the situation.
U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton has pledged full support for Japan after the country's massive earthquake. She made the offer during a telephone conversation on Saturday with Japanese Foreign Minister Takeaki Matsumoto. Clinton expressed sympathy and said the U.S. government is ready to provide all possible assistance. She added she hopes officials from both countries will be in close contact. Matsumoto told Clinton the quake has caused major damage in wide areas, and the government is making an all-out effort to respond. He also said he is grateful the Obama administration and U.S. forces in Japan offered cooperation so soon after the quake. He said he found the support from Japan's ally reassuring. Matsumoto and Clinton confirmed Japanese and American officials will quickly figure out what kind of help the U.S. will provide. The Japanese Foreign Ministry says 50 countries and regions, including the U.S., China, South Korea, and the European Union, are offering assistance. The government is discussing with related ministries and municipalities what support is necessary as it assesses the extent of the damage.
The Japanese and U.S. governments are discussing how the United States can help rescue operations after Friday's massive earthquake. Japanese Defense Minister Tosumi Kitazawa told reporters on Friday that the talks came after U.S. military forces stationed in Japan offered help. Kitazawa said Japan's self-defense forces will make all-out rescue efforts in cooperation with local governments. The defense minister also said the government has dispatched or prepared about 8,000 SDF troops, 300 airplanes, and 40 naval vessels to collect information and carry out rescue operations. Chief Cabinet Secretary Yukio Edano told reporters on Saturday that the government has asked the U.S. to dispatch the aircraft carrier USS Ronald Reagan to provide refueling and medical assistance.
Tsunami waves triggered by the massive quake off Japan's Pacific coast have caused casualties not only at home but abroad. Indonesian authorities and state-run media say 1.5-meter tsunami hit the island of New Guinea on Friday evening, killing one man riding a bike near the coast. The U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration says a tsunami of over 2.4 meters was recorded in Northern California on Saturday morning. 7 people were swept away, with 6 rescued and 1 still missing. The Chilean Interior Ministry says a several-meter-high tsunami reached the country early on Saturday. Dozens of ships in a port were destroyed or swept away.
A strong earthquake jolted the prefectures of Nagano and Niigata in central Japan on Saturday. Tremors with intensities of 6+ on the Japanese scale of 0 to 7 were registered in northern Nagano at around 3:59 a.m. local time. Jolts with intensities of 6- were recorded in Niigata Prefecture. Japan's meteorological agency estimates the earthquake had a magnitude of 6.7 with its focus at a depth of 8 kilometers in Niigata's Chuetsu region. In northern Nagano, there were landslides along the railway connecting to Niigata. NHK video shows a train track dangling off a hillside. Seismic experts say the series of quakes on Saturday are different from those on Friday along the Pacific coast.
Now let's look at our stories once again. The biggest earthquake that struck the Pacific coast in the country's northeast on Friday has brought catastrophic damage in broad areas. The quake is the largest Japan has suffered since records began about 140 years ago. The meteorological agency has issued a tsunami warning advisory for most of the coastal areas of the country. A tsunami higher than 7.3 meters crashed into Fukushima Prefecture. Tsunamis higher than 4 meters were recorded in other districts of eastern Japan. The agency says tsunami waves over the 1 meter high were observed repeatedly on Saturday.
Almost 600 people have been confirmed dead in Friday's earthquake that severely hit wide areas of northeastern Japan. An additional 400 to 500 bodies found in Miyagi Prefecture are likely to bring the death toll to more than 1,000. Of the 563 people confirmed dead in the Tohoku region as of 3 p.m. local time, 221 were in Iwate Prefecture, 190 in Fukushima, 149 in Miyagi, 2 in Aomori, and 1 in Yamagata, respectively. In addition, local police were told that 200 to 300 bodies have been found around the coastal area in Sendai City, Miyagi Prefecture, but they are unable to enter the site to retrieve them. In the Kanto region centering on Tokyo, at least 28 people have been confirmed dead. In the Japanese capital, 2 people were killed after a building partially collapsed. Another 2 died from inhaling chemicals at a plant.
Tokyo Electric Power Company says an explosion was heard at one of its nuclear reactors in a power plant in quake-hit Fukushima Prefecture. It says several workers were injured. The power plant operator told a news conference that it had been informed smoke was seen near the scene of the explosion at the Fukushima No. 1 power station. The utility firm had been releasing air from the container of the reactor to lower pressure. Pressure inside the container had been rising to a level 1,000 times higher than usual after the reactor's cooling system broke down due to power failure.
The prefectural government of Fukushima has expanded the evacuation area around the Fukushima No. 1 nuclear power plant from an earlier established 10-kilometer radius to a 20-kilometer radius. The prefectural government is working to determine which towns and villages fall under the new evacuation order.
Fukushima Prefecture says a high level of radiation has been measured near the Fukushima No. 1 nuclear power station. The prefecture says the radiation level rose to 1,015 microsieverts per hour on Saturday. 1 hour of exposure to this amount of radiation is equivalent to the permissible amount of radiation an ordinary person receives in 1 year.
A nuclear emergency has also been declared at the Fukushima No. 2 nuclear power plant in order to prevent a widespread disaster. This follows Friday's emergency declaration for the Fukushima No. 1 nuclear power plant after the earthquake occurred.
Chief Cabinet Secretary Yukio Edano says the evacuation area around the Fukushima No. 2 power station will be expanded from an earlier established 3-kilometer radius to a 10-kilometer radius. Edano says radiation is being measured and that the data collected so far is within the expected levels.
Prime Minister Naoto Kan has visited an emergency-stricken nuclear power plant in Fukushima Prefecture and inspected the quake-hit Pacific coast, northeastern Japan. The head of the plant, which is operated by Tokyo Electric Power Company, briefed the Prime Minister on the current status of the plant and responses to the situation. Later, by helicopter, Kan inspected the quake-battered coastal areas, including the cities of Sendai and Ishinomaki in Miyagi Prefecture. He watched a blazing industrial complex and residential districts devastated by tsunami waves.
Later, Prime Minister Kan asked leaders of political parties to cooperate with the government in dealing with the aftermath of Friday's deadly earthquake and tsunami. Kan briefed leaders of the 8 governing and opposition parties after his inspection of the quake-hit areas from the air earlier in the day. He said coastal areas were submerged and fires were still burning in some areas. Kan said the government will have to draw up an emergency budget for reconstruction projects and that he wants cooperation from the opposition bloc.
A government panel of experts says the earthquake of magnitude 8.8 may have occurred in a wider-ranging focal area than was expected. The panel says geologists had not imagined several source areas would be synchronized. Tokyo University Professor Emeritus Katsuyuki Abe said an observation conducted at an observatory using a GPS earthquake tracker shows that the ground there has moved about 4 meters to the west. The panel has concluded that all 4 expected focal regions were synchronized. The 4 regions make up a stretch of a few hundred kilometers from waters off Miyagi Prefecture to waters off Ibaraki Prefecture.
Tsunami waves triggered by the massive quake off the Pacific coast of Japan's northeast on Friday have reached the United States and Chile, leaving 1 missing. The U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration says a tsunami measuring over 2.4 meters high was reported at Crescent City in Northern California nearly 11 hours after the quake.
And that was the news from NHK World Radio Japan in Tokyo. I'm Joseph Queenie.
And I'm Michelle Yamamoto.